Fletcher Tabato.
Mr Chair, it's a pleasure to stand and take a call on this bill, the New Zealand Business Number Bill. I wanted to take this opportunity basically to respond to the contributions from the other side of the House, which have been, kind of marginal at best, to put it politely. First, to address the previous speaker's resistance in that all government agencies must comply and use this business number thing. If he'd read the SOP, it clearly says other identifier the government agency may use for that entity if that use is in accordance with the purpose of this Act. Ria wrote this SOP understanding that, of course, not all government agencies are going to necessitate the need for the use of the business number. Of course, it does not make sense. If the member had taken the time, sir, to read the SOP, then we wouldn't have wasted those minutes in the debate. The member previous from the other side of the House, I think after that contribution, he should stand up, stand against his party and vote against this piece of legislation. That's how passionate he was about how pitiful or how terrible it is to ask government agencies to actually have a timeline and a budget to comply with expectations set out in this legislation. I mean, he just couldn't believe that we would ask government agencies to comply with those kind of requirements, and it's nonsensical. And what I wanted to touch on, because the Minister in his first address to the House, when we first addressed this in the House, Mr Chairman, spoke very eloquently about how this universal business number will, actually he spoke about it adding to GDP. He said it would be so monumental in its application that it would actually improve the economy. And we are given numbers such as reduced costs of dealing with the government by 25%. So New Zealand First says, well, companies now are dealing with that. I think what we've seen from companies who are obliged and are working with the business number system at the moment are seeing some of those benefits. So they are saying, actually, we think New Zealand's small and medium enterprises, you might benefit from this. But as the member Jacinda Ardern pointed out, actually there's quite a bit of debate around that, and there's actually not a lot of engagement from the government as to why this would actually benefit New Zealand businesses. And New Zealand business at that smaller level, who you'd think would benefit the most from not having to deal with all these government organisations who deal with this every day, actually can't see the benefit of this legislation at face value. So where's the engagement? Where's the conversation? It just undermines what the government's trying to achieve. And I have to say that New Zealand First does support the intent. If it does make it easier for small to medium-sized enterprises in New Zealand to engage with the government so that they're spending less time on red tape, we think that is a wonderful thing. But I just wanted to refer to some of the amendments, for example. In the original, as has been pointed out, the original obligation for Crown entities was they must. They must commit to this process. If they don't, sir, it makes a farce of the entire piece of legislation. And I put it to you, not only will the legislation fail and therefore undermine its intent, in fact, if it does not make it mandatory for Crown organisations, not only will it fail, but it will be costly for New Zealand businesses in its failure in terms of their being forced to comply with legislation that essentially has no meaning because the Crown is not there to act in the same manner on a level playing field with business. So originally the legislation said the Act must bind the Crown. Now it doesn't. This bill is all about Crown entities and they've scratched out this Act must bind the Crown. It just makes no sense whatsoever. The debate for me, and perhaps I think what Ms Bond and Dr Clark have come up with is exactly the solution that we need. But perhaps if I put it to the Minister, maybe there's another compromise. Maybe if Crown entities can commit in writing to a time frame and a budget to say when they will comply. No, No, it's been deleted, mate.
I'm going to call the Honourable David Parker.